since I have 2 napping babies, I figured while I'm here in this spot, I would do my birth story because I haven't really done that update yet. So I'm going to try to go into as much detail as I can, but also keep it fairly quick and fairly concise. On March 15th/16th, oh, she's going to get upset. Might not be able to do it. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. On March 15th/16th, well, it was the night of March 15th, but it was in the AMs at 2 a.m., or around 1 a.m. actually. 1 a.m., I started having, like, crazy movement. I didn't really understand, you know, and I had a little bit of this before with her where she had, like, crazy movement, and I heard it could maybe mean distress, or I read it on Dr. Google. But for about an hour, she was just moving so vigorously and so fast that I was worried, I'll be honest, and I thought about it, and I didn't want to be one of those crazy moms, but I also was like, I don't want to be one of those people that doesn't call and then, you know, regrets it. So I'm going to call, even though, you know, that's what the on-call doctor's for, and I'm just going to call and give myself a little peace of mind, and then I'll sleep. So she's continuing to move, and I call the on-call doctor, and she calls me back, and I'm like, listen, I've been reading on Google that increased movement could be a sign of distress. Maybe the cords are on her neck. I'm worried. Is everything okay? And the doctor was like, she was very tired, and she was like, opposite. It's the opposite. No move, bad for baby. Good moving, good for baby, or something like that. She like sounded so tired, and I was like, thank you, blah, blah, whatever. So I got off the phone, and I felt reassured. And I went to sleep. Although there was still movement throughout the night, I was able to sleep pretty well. At around 6 a.m., I started feeling really strange. I started having kind of menstrual crampy tightening. It was mostly in the front of like my lower abdomen. There was a little bit in my, not really in my back, but kind of towards my bottom. I could feel like a little bit of strange kind of tightening and, you know, crampiness. It felt a lot like menstrual cramps. That's the best way to describe it. And it would tighten, and I was like, what's going on? Is this labor? Maybe this is labor. I mean, it felt different than my Braxton Hicks contractions. So after a couple of those happening, I decided to start timing them. And they were about 7 or 8 minutes, 6 minutes apart, for the most part, kind of erratic. So I was kind of feeling like, maybe this is something, maybe it isn't. And I knew that it was a Monday on March 16th, so I knew that Joel was going to be getting up soon. So I decided that I would wait and see, and if they got a little closer, felt a little more intense, I would have him stay home. And he woke up around 7 a.m., and I was like, I remember I wrote on my the baby group that I belong to on Facebook that I might be going to labor, like to the baby groups, and then I texted my sister because she was up already. She's on the East Coast and I'm on the West Coast, and I was like, I don't know what's going on, but I think I might be going to labor. And she's like, oh really? And you know, she seemed, you know, not totally convinced but not totally unconvinced, and I was like, yeah, I don't know, maybe and then all of a sudden I was kind of typing to her, and I was like, you know, these are pretty painful, and I was feeling these are pretty painful and intense actually. I think this might be it. And that was close to 7 a.m. and Joel was up. He got up and he was shaving. And I went in and I was like, honey, I think you should call out of work. I think, you know, something's happening here. And he's like, oh, really? And he was just like, couldn't believe it. And I still was so skeptical. Oh, honey, do you want to try the other side? I still was so skeptical about the whole thing. So I just was kind of like, well, you know, call into work, but don't tell them that it's for sure labor, because I don't know, just, you know. And he's like, yeah, I'll call them in. He's like, I'm going to call, excuse me, sorry. Okay, sorry about that. He was like, well, I'm going to call in, and I'm going to call my mom, because his mom was here. Thank goodness. She got here the 14th. Talk about perfect timing. And I was like, okay, well, yeah, tell her she doesn't have to rush, though. You know, that was my whole thing, was just I expected, because I'd heard so many stories. I had never gone into spontaneous labor myself. Yes, honey. I'd never gone into spontaneous labor myself, but I'd heard so many stories about people starting to labor at home, and, you know, the contractions are kind of irregular like mine were. They were kind of like, you know, very intense, but like 6 minutes apart. And then 7, and then, you know, different, we were trying to time them together, and they were a little erratic still. And then, so his mother comes right over, because that's just how she is, and she, you know, she's on top of things. She's kind of like me. She's more intense than me in terms of like her go, go, go. She's a doer. So she shows up right away, and she's awesome, and just, you know, starts kind of gathering for Tor, because she's going to stay with Tor. And I start packing my bag. Like, I had most of it packed, but I didn't realize how much that there were some little things that I hadn't done, and trying to get snacks together for Tor, and I'm still just, you know, in denial. And then I kind of like, I realized that I'm on all fours, kind of going, oh, so Joel, I need this blanket. Wait, oh, and I'm like, we've lost complete track of timing my contractions on this little app. But I was like, I don't know, this is not like a pattern that's regular, because but it's really close together. So I realized that I was having contractions like every 2 minutes, or I would have one every 4 minutes, you know, but they were all really close together and intense. They just weren't following an exact pattern. So I didn't know what that meant. I was like, what does that mean? And, you know, then I'm still getting ready. I'm still in denial that I'm actually in labor, until finally I realized, I was like, okay, we have to go to the hospital, because I was like, I just stopped and I was like, what are you doing? I was just kept saying, oh, well, let me get this together. And I was trying to get things together, and I just couldn't. So we grabbed a towel to put on the seat just in case my water broke, and we started off to the hospital. I was like, all right, we're going. Whatever we don't have, you can bring to us. We're going. So I grabbed everything, and we go there, and I call my doctor, no, she actually calls back, because Joel called her, and he puts me on the phone with her, and I'm like, hi, I'm like, so we're actually just going to the hospital, because I think that I might be in, wait a minute, oh, you know, like I started having a contraction. She's like, yeah, I got it, you're in labor, I can tell. See you at the hospital. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so crazy. So we were on our way, and Joel got mad because I wouldn't let him. There was a police car there, and he wanted to get a police escort to the hospital. But I was like, no, we're driving safe. We're driving careful. We're just driving straight to the hospital. Let's not get into any drama. Let's not stop any cops. Let's just go. And he was like, ugh. So we get there, and we walk up to the maternity ward, and the woman they see us coming, and they're like, hey, we're expecting you. Are you Candace McCarthy? And I was like, don't call me Candace. And I was just like, you know, I'm Candy, don't call me Candace. And I like went by or whatever. And they were like, okay, Candy, you're Candy. We got it. Joel laughed at that. He thought that was really funny. And I also got annoyed at him because he was like trying to help somebody find the correct floor that was in the thing. And I was like, oh, and I'm like having contractions, and I'm like, honey, stay focused right here. And I'm just totally like the epitome of the bitchy wife in labor who's like annoyed. And then he's sitting there. They finally get me down, and they're like checking me, and I was a 4-5, and he was filling out the birth certificate information, and I was making sure that he spelled Tallulah right. And I was like, just look at the text message I sent you. And, you know, I had Girl Scout cookies that I got for the nurses, and he was starting to open them, and I was like, those aren't for you, those are for the nurses. And, you know, I was just kind of crabby, and he was laughing through the whole thing, and he was really great. So it was kind of funny. I was a 4-5, and I was talking to someone on the phone. I can't remember who it was. It was either my sister or my parents. And I was like, yeah, I'm in early labor. And the nurse was like, honey, you're in labor. You're not in early labor. You're in labor. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm in labor. So we're at the hospital, and I'm expecting this to be a long, drawn-out thing. And I decided to get the epidural, because last time I just didn't, progress without it. So I get my epidural on its way, and we decide, we're taking some pictures, and the epidural comes in, and then we decide to put my leg up over this big yellow ball to try to get her to move, because she still hadn't moved from sunny side up to face forward. And the contractions were intense, and, Joel was helping me through all of them, and then I finally get the epidural placed, and I felt great, and I'm just kind of being positioned because I could hardly move my body. It was really strange. and I could feel the epidural more on one side than the other, which I've heard can happen. That didn't happen with my last one, but it did happen with this one. So I'm waiting and waiting and waiting, and I decided to call my parents finally, because they said they were up. I tried to call them before, but they weren't awake yet. So I call them, and I'm talking to them, and my dad's like, so how long? And I was like, I don't know, Dad. And I'm just being like, I don't know. I'm guessing probably about 6 hours or so. I think it's, going to be a while still. And my dad's like, well, I don't know. And Mom's like, oh, I don't know. And I was like, yeah, I just think it's going to be a while, but we'll see. And then all of a sudden I started feeling pressure, and I was told if I felt a certain kind of pressure to call the nurses, because it could be the feeling that I need to push. So I felt the pressure, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm sorry, Dad, I gotta go. So I hung up on them right away immediately. And then Joel's mom called, and she was looking for a screwdriver, and he's like, Mom, I can't talk right now, because they realized that I was a 9.5, which you have to be 10 centimeters in case you don't know. I was a 9.5, and they were like, you're ready to give birth to this baby. And also my waters had crept out and broke. There were membranes everywhere and stuff. It was really crazy. It just it didn't do that crazy loud pop that my last time did. It was just kind of this gradual thing, but they broke. So they were like, you're having a baby. And I was like, Joel and I just looked at each other like, what? How is this so easy this time? How is this so quick and easy and a natural labor? And I don't even know. I mean, a natural, I had an epidural, but a spontaneous labor, not an induction. And, before we knew it, I was pushing. They just said, let's just give her a chance to turn around a little bit. And they went over and they prepped me. And I think it was 3 or 4 pushes, and she was out. And everybody told me, they were like, don't tell anyone about this, because they're going to be. And she had turned, by the way. She had turned to her face down where she was supposed to be. And they were like, don't tell them, because this is too easy in labor and too easy delivery. And they're going to be, they're not going to like it. And I couldn't believe it myself. There she was. They put her on my chest, and she was so tiny and so squiggly, and 7 pounds, 15 ounces, 19 and 3/4 inches, and just beautiful as could be. Looks so much like her brother. That's the first thing I thought. Was really dark hair, a lot of dark hair, more than him, but looked just so much like her brother. And just, that little wail, her own little cry that sounded very different. And I couldn't believe it. And she was here, and it was so fast. I was posting pictures not long after that, and people were like, that was really fast, wasn't it? And no one could quite believe it. I couldn't believe it. So yeah, before I knew it. And that was from the time I began very early labor, which would have been 6 a.m.-ish, to she was born at 12:31 p.m. on March 16th. Just one of the greatest loves of my life, of all these, her and Tor and her daddy and Brock and all my loves. And it's just such a wonderful experience. It's been such a wonderful, easygoing experience. It was such a beautiful birth experience, and I feel so grateful for all of it. And I hope that everyone can have an experience like that at some point for a birth, because it was really great. So that's my birth story. If anybody has any questions or I've left anything out, you can, let me know. But that's it. That's the birth of Tallulah Catherine.